I've never really been able to do a good Flair woo. My voice is too low and it just doesn't work. Just another example of my charisma being a blessing and a curse. Anyway, one of the most acclaimed wrestlers in the history of the industry. Ric Flair is the most decorated world champion in wrestling with an as yet unmatched 16 world championship reigns, although a plucky little place-running face is doing his darndest to f*** that right up. But anyone who refers to themselves as a styling, profiling, limousine-riding, jet-flying, kiss-stealing, wheeling-dealing son of a gun, you know they've got a hoard of devilish little secrets. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 things WWE want you to forget about Ric Flair. Number 10, getting naked all the time. They say never meet your heroes, but maybe that expression should be never meet your hero's bare ass and cock, which from all accounts is very difficult when it comes to Richard Flair. We know that Flair loves to party and was involved in the plane ride from hell, the sky-high orgy of pissed up violence and nudity, walking around wearing only his robe and flashing air hostesses. But the nature boy was often the au naturel boy when out in the town, climbing on bars and exposing his meat grapes and rumptitude to the masses. Also, and this is more horrible, Flair has been known to regularly peek under the skirts of passing stewardesses and saying, "Just checking, no hair, no flair." This more than qualifies Ric Flair to run for president. Number 9, blading in the PG era. Ric Flair likes to bleed. His white hair always made it look great when blood would flow, so he bladed at every available opportunity, whether he was wrestling a match, cutting a promo, or just meeting the vicar that's moved into his village. However, in 2008, WWE went PG and the rule was keep the red in your head. That ban was enforced fairly heavily, with a blading incident by Batista netting him a $100,000 fine, so yeah, Vince means business. However, a dude who juiced and got off scot-free was, of course, Ric Flair. In the lead up to Mania 25 in March 2009, Jericho was going through the beating up old men phase that all Canadians go through. In true Wayne's World tradition, he beat Ric Flair with his own shoes. Flair bled badly, and maybe it was legitimate bleeding, but this is Flair we're talking about. Of course he bladed. WWE didn't publicly announce a fine for the infraction, but they haven't uploaded the clip to their YouTube channel, anxious to keep it out of sight. Number 8, he was a Ring of Honor ambassador. Ric Flair retired from professional wrestling in 2008 after his excellent retirement match against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 24. However, after years of living his gimmick as the jet flying, Rolex watch buying, tax avoiding, credit destroying, he had a lot of debts and needed to keep working. He worked for a number of other promotions, chiefly TNA, we'll get to that, and Ring of Honor. He signed with ROH in 2009, appearing as an authority figure in the technical role of Ring of Honor ambassador. He then proceeded to miss events he was paid to attend, walk out of one of the ones he did halfway through the show, and prematurely end his business relationship with the company. Former owner of Ring of Honor, Kerry Silken, is absolutely not cool about this at all, unsuccessfully suing Flair for $40,000 and recently declaring on Twitter in May this year he was going to attend a signing Flair was doing in order to collect his $41K. Maybe one of the reasons he's so cross is that no matter how much of a provable bastard Flair is, no one will ever really hate him. I mean, how could you? It's Ric Flair. Number 7, setting records for WCW. Saying that Ric Flair is a good draw is something of an understatement. He's one of the greatest heel draws in wrestling history, pulling in packed houses as he toured the territories of the NWA back in the 80s. He's also one of only 2 men in history who can say he drew 190,000 people. And he didn't do it for WWE. Collision in Korea was a 2-day joint show organized by WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling, held in Pyongyang, North Korea, headlined by Ric Flair versus Antonio Inoki. The 2-day saw an astonishing 350,000 people attend in total. 190k of those came out to see Flair headline, or because they were ordered to by their government, either or. Whichever, it's a huge record that WWE may never smash, and that seems still smart, seeing as Collision in Korea isn't available to watch on the WWE network. Number 6, his beef with Bret Hart. Everyone likes Ric Flair, right? He's the leathery best. Well, turns out that being the leader of your industry engenders resentment, which explains why King Ross is constantly having a pop at me. Bret the Hitman Hart and the Nature Boy have had a love-hate relationship with a capital hate. They engaged in a war of words, and autobiographies were their battlegrounds. In his, Flair accused Bret of over-exploiting Owen Hart's death and slammed him for not being the draw he thought he was. Hart shot back in his memoirs that Flair wasn't the in-ring talent he thought he was. Book versus book, a true dream match. Apparently they have since reconciled and are now friends. Number 5, the rest of his backstage feuds. There's one phrase that crops up over and over again when doing research about Ric Flair, and that is, they have since reconciled and are now friends. Turns out loads of people have talk the living balls out of the Nature Boy, enough to fill this list in fact, but let's save your precious time and condense the key ones, shall we? Mick Foley and Flair exchanged insults, with Mick calling Rick a bad booker in WCW and Rick returning fire that Foley was a glorified stuntman. They have since reconciled and are now friends. Bruno Sammartino and Flair got into it, with Rick calling Sam as a Northeast star who couldn't draw outside New York. Sammartino publicly stated he didn't respect Flair at all. All together now, they have since reconciled and are now friends. Roddy Piper called Rick an asshole who couldn't keep his dick in his pants at a live wrestling show in Ireland. They have since reconciled, and Flair said very moving things after Piper's death. Shane Douglas constantly refers to the Nature Boy as Dick Flair for actively hindering his push in WCW, and Flair responded that Douglas was on steroids. In a refreshing change of pace, the two men still f***ing hate each other. Number 4, the Bischoff bust-up. This disagreement led to fisticuffs, and so it gets its own entry. My list, my rules, deal with it, you awful dregs. Also, it involved Eric Bischoff, so it's personal. Bischoff and Flair had a famously bad time of making the friendship in WCW, so much so that their mutual hatred made it onto television. In 1998, Flair no-showed an episode of Thunder to attend his son's wrestling meetup, allegedly telling Eric Bischoff weeks in advance. Regardless, as punishment for no-showing, Bischoff suspended Flair and threatened to sue him and, quote, put his family on the streets. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la. Flair returned later in the year in a great segment where he denounced Bischoff, and a truce was eventually reached. Then, 5 years later, when Bischoff and Flair were both in WWE, they finally came to blows over it, with the two men having a physical fight not once, but twice on the same day. They have since reconciled and are now friends. Number 3, wrestling in TNA. Oh, this is just sad, this one. So Flair retired in 2008, and it was brilliant. The match at Mania, the tribute show the next night on Raw. Flair made a tearful address, and they played a song called Leave the Memories Alone. Heed the song, Rick! Why didn't you heed the song? Well, stacking financial debts is probably why. Instead of enjoying his retirement, Flair prolonged his in-ring career, like when Hearsay prolonged their career by bringing in Johnny to replace Kim. You blind fools! No one could replace Kim, not in our hearts! His work in TNA is just the saddest thing, including a car crash of a promo where he and Mick Foley took turns twatting themselves in their own heads to draw blood. It's starkly depressing to watch. He worked there for 2.5 years, but thankfully the fans still embraced him when he appeared on WWE television over the past year. Ultimately, Flair has built a legacy that can't be destroyed, no matter how hard he tries. Number 2, the 2K14 panel. I don't want to dwell on this one too much. Ric Flair was on the panel to promote video game WWE 2K14 before SummerSlam. He was drunk, insulted Daniel Bryan, made allusions to John Cena's drinking habits, and got emotional about his son Reed Flair's death. WWE were apoplectic with rage, booting Flair from SummerSlam and firing Jim Ross, who chaired the panel. Fact is, Rick had only been mourning his son's death for 6 months. He was not ready to be thrust back into public eye. It's just a sad time. And number 1, the Reed Flair segment on Raw. This is even worse. It's easily the worst thing WWE has done in years, and they definitely want it buried. To hype a feud between Paige and Charlotte, they script Paige to mock the death of Reed Flair, saying he didn't have much fight in him. The feud did not warrant that. It was pure shock value, and even worse, WWE didn't even tell Rick or Reed's mother Elizabeth that they were doing it. WWE dropped that part of the angle and pretended it never happened. God, it's left me in a bad mood, and I don't want to end like this, so here is a picture of Ric Flair battling Ricky Steamboat. That's better. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon. If you're a fan of the videos that What Culture puts out on its YouTube channels, why not join What Culture Extra, our subscription service for paying members? For paying just a small fee every month, you get access to exclusive lists, pipe bombs, booking videos, wrestling's worst merch, live streams for Raw and SmackDown every single week, exclusive WTF videos looking back at classic pay-per-views. Also, there's exclusive interviews, documentaries, Q&As, short films, and if you're a fan of WCPW, every episode of Loaded will be uploaded one day early, and you'll be able to view the episode in its entirety, and included in the price are all of our iPay-per-views, such as Refuse to Lose and the upcoming Delete WCPW. All that for just $6.99 a month, or just over $5 for UK fans, and you can cancel at any time. For more information and to sign up, go to whatculture.com/extra.
I will delete WCPW. It's over!